I want to welcome you guys to my review of the Honda CB500X. This is kind of going to be an honest review from a short rider. I don't normally review bikes, but this was a request from my subscriber, so I'm going to give it a shot. This is my second bike. It's a 2013 model without ABS. I've had it for about 3 years and I paid $4,700 for it. I'm a female rider. I'm 5 foot 6 inches tall, 140 pounds, and I think I have about a 28-inch inseam. The seat height on this bike is 31 inches, which isn't really that tall, but the seat is kind of wide, and I find that tends to make the bike feel taller than it really is, maybe. I can't really flat foot this. Also, the seat slopes toward the tank, which sends me toward the tank under heavy braking or just after a while, and I find myself constantly readjusting. Next, let's listen to the exhaust. I think the exhaust is too quiet, and I recommend replacing this with an aftermarket exhaust that's louder. And this is really for safety reasons. I do a lot of commuting around town, and I just don't think cars can hear me very well. I find the overall ergonomics of this bike to be very comfortable, aside from those two things I mentioned about the seat. It's an upright standard seating position, and you can easily reach all of the controls. It also affords a great amount of visibility, which I think is really helpful for safety. Next, let's talk about the engine. This is a 471cc parallel twin engine with a 6-speed transmission. I was coming from a 250 bike as my first bike, so I was really intimidated by how much larger this bike was, and I thought it would be much faster than it is, but it's actually very user-friendly and extremely manageable. However, there's a bit of a drawback here. It doesn't have a lot of acceleration, and that's kind of scary on the interstate. Here, I'm taking it on the interstate just to kind of assess how it does, and I'm trying to get in front of this red truck here. I think I have a lot of time because I think I'm going to be able to accelerate much faster than I can, but unfortunately I go to click up and it's already in 6th gear. I find that this happens a lot with this bike. I think I have more and then there just isn't anything. This is about 4,000 RPMs at 70 miles per hour in 6th gear. Also, that windscreen kind of directs wind directly at your head or your chest depending on how tall you are. So you can upgrade that, but if you do a lot of touring or long distance touring on the interstate, I don't recommend this bike. It does well in all weather. These are the Pirelli Scorpion trail tires that come with its stock, and they do just fine. I've never had problems with them. On longer trips, if you have luggage, for example in this clip I actually have soft bags, I definitely recommend getting a rack for it. I found out the hard way on this journey that you need a rack for even the soft bags because my rear tire just ate through my soft bags, which was a bummer. I'll go over some of the other issues that I've had with this bike that maybe are just kind of personal to me or maybe would be relevant to other short-statured riders. I thought this bike was very awkward at first, especially sitting on it in the dealership compared to the CB500F. I found the handlebars to be wide, and I thought that it seemed like it carried its weight up high, and it seemed a little unwieldy to me, and I just didn't know if I would be able to manage it ever. I have dropped it a couple times, like I said, and that kind of ruins my confidence. This is a stupid mistake here on ice. I don't think any bike is going to do that well on ice, but I can't really pick this bike up by myself. It's 430 pounds, and I don't really have the right technique, and I haven't really practiced it. I think with the right technique and enough practice, almost anybody could lift this bike, but for me, it's just been sort of a thing that bruises my ego, and it leaves me thinking maybe I should have gotten a smaller bike. So if you're little like I am, comparatively to like male riders or whatever, it's something to think about. This clip is an example of kind of why I regret not getting the ABS. I was following my friend too closely here, and he stops at this traffic light, which I wasn't expecting to happen, and I locked the brakes up right there. So the brakes were something that I had to get used to, and coming from a bike that had drum brakes, it was really a big change. So as a smaller rider, my recommendation is if you're thinking about this bike, you can do it. I just recommend practicing with it in parking lots maybe a little bit more than you would another bike. At least for me, that's helped me get a little more comfortable with it at lower speeds. So I practice actually every year doing weave cones and emergency stopping and so on and so forth, so that I can just sort of reacquaint myself with the height and weight. I'll end this video on a positive note, talking about the thing that I like the best about this bike. It's kind of ironic that the thing that I like the best about this bike is something that probably does the least well, which is dirt roads, but for a street bike, I think it does surprisingly well on dirt roads, which I think is really gratifying. I always find myself thinking like, oh man, I don't think I could do this road, and then I do it and the bike does fine. So it's not something that, this is not a replacement of a dual sport or a dirt bike. Those are always going to be better suited for this type of thing. But if you're like me and you do a lot of commuting on the street and you want to do like the occasional fire service road and you like being out in nature, I think that that balance is really struck well with this bike. If you're, like I said, more into dirt bikes and you do at least 50% of your road riding is off-road, then this bike's not going to be that great for you. But like I said, I do probably about 90% commuting around town and then occasionally want to do these dirt roads. And that's been the most gratifying thing about this bike for me, is that it's sort of the perfect balance for me in that way. So I would characterize this bike as sort of a jack of all trades and master of none. I think that it does a lot of different things, but it can't do any one thing particularly exceptionally well. So I think this bike is very affordable, and I'm very pleased with this bike. I don't intend to trade it in anytime soon. I'll leave you with a list here of recommended upgrades if you're looking to get this bike, and I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, feel free to comment, like, and share. Thanks, and ride safe.